In a sobering new analysis, pensioners across the United Kingdom are facing a financial storm that could shake the very foundations of retirement security. A potential £14,960 increase in the income needed for a comfortable retirement by the year 2030 now looms large, threatening the financial future of millions of older citizens. This alarming figure emerges from the continued freeze on income tax thresholds, a policy first introduced in 2021 and now confirmed to remain in place until at least 2028. But under the new Labour government, that freeze could be extended even further. Both Prime Minister Keir Starmer and Chancellor Rachel Reeves have pointedly declined to rule out keeping those tax thresholds frozen beyond 2028, as the Treasury grapples with what it now describes as a £22 billion fiscal black hole. While that decision may seem like a technical detail in the grand machinery of government, the implications for pensioners are deeply personal, deeply financial, and profoundly life-altering. According to Pensions UK, the trade body responsible for tracking retirement affordability, a single pensioner in 2024 needs around £43,900 in disposable income to maintain what is considered a comfortable retirement lifestyle. That includes not just the basics like food, rent, heating, and medical needs, but also modest luxuries that make life more than just survival: regular beauty treatments, theatre trips, and the cherished 2-week European getaway each year. Back in 2019-2020, that same standard of retirement could be maintained for £33,000 a year. But with inflation surging, energy prices climbing, and the cost of living crisis hammering UK households, that benchmark has risen sharply and shows no signs of slowing. Now, economists warn that if this trend continues at the current rate, around 6% annually, and income tax thresholds remain frozen, a pensioner aiming for that same standard of living would need £58,860 in disposable income by 2030. Let that number sink in. Nearly £59,000 after tax would be required just to maintain a standard retirement lifestyle. And because of fiscal drag, that hidden stealth tax created by frozen allowances, that would mean needing a gross income of at least £77,153. That's nearly double the average UK salary today. Fiscal drag may sound like a dry economic term, but its effects are sharp, tangible, and deeply felt. When income thresholds don't rise with inflation, more and more of your earnings and your pension are pulled into tax. It happens quietly, invisibly, without any official tax rise announcement. But your take-home pay or pension starts to shrink. And now, even pensioners, many of whom have never paid tax on their state pension, could be pulled into HMRC's net. Former Pensions Minister Baroness Altmann issued a stern warning. She said, and we quote, "Taxing these pensioners for perhaps a few pennies will be an administrative nightmare and cause distress and upset." Her concern isn't just about paperwork. It's about dignity. It's about fairness. And it's about the state targeting some of the most vulnerable members of society, those who have already paid into the system for decades simply because inflation has outpaced a tax code frozen in time. Baroness Altmann went on to point out that state pensions themselves could soon exceed the personal allowance of £12,570 if the freeze continues. Think about that for a moment. Pensioners relying solely on their state pension without private income could soon find themselves receiving letters from HMRC. Not because they've become wealthy, but because the system failed to adjust. Alan Barrell, a respected financial planner with Quilter Cheviot, echoed those concerns. Frozen income tax thresholds may feel like a technical detail, he said, but they have real consequences for retirees whose standard of living is being squeezed. And squeezed they are. The government has been quick to defend its record. In a public statement, a government spokesman said, "We are committed to helping our pensioners live their lives with dignity and respect, which is why in April the basic and new state pension increased by 4.1%. He added that pensioners would see an income boost of up to £470 in the 2025-2026 tax year. And he pointed to the continued use of the triple lock as proof that the government is keeping its promise to retirees. Under the triple lock, the state pension increases each year by the highest of three measures: average earnings, inflation, or 2.5%. That means millions of older people could see their pension rise by as much as £1,900 during this Parliament. But let's pause there. Even if the full increase of £1,900 were delivered, it would be wiped out in less than 2 years by the effects of fiscal drag, especially for pensioners crossing over the £12,570 personal allowance threshold and being pulled into the basic rate tax band. What we're seeing is a rise with one hand and a silent clawback with the other. And crucially, none of these government reassurances address the looming question: will the tax threshold freeze continue beyond 2028? Because if it does, the impact on older generations could be devastating. Financial modeling shows that if frozen thresholds remain in place while costs continue to rise, hundreds of thousands more pensioners will face tax bills. Some for the first time in their lives. The increase in tax revenue may seem modest from an HMRC perspective, but for a low-income retiree already struggling to afford food, heating, and prescriptions, even £5 or £10 deducted a month can make the difference between comfort and hardship. For those relying on personal or workplace pensions to supplement their state income, the outlook is even more precarious. More pension drawdowns will be subject to higher rate tax bands, dragging retirees into 40% taxation on income that, just a few years ago, would have gone untaxed or taxed at 20%. And let's not forget many pensioners are already on tight budgets, some just scraping by. The assumption that every retiree can absorb thousands more in tax burdens is simply out of touch with the lived reality of millions across the UK. While the government insists it is still analysing future fiscal policies, the signals coming from Westminster are clear. The new Labour leadership is under immense pressure to fill a fiscal black hole, reportedly £22 billion, and may turn to stealth taxation methods that don't require a headline-grabbing hike in rates. It's a politically safer move but a devastating one for pensioners. For now, we wait. The autumn budget is set to be one of the most consequential in recent memory. Economists believe tax rises, or the extension of the threshold freeze, are almost inevitable unless bold action is taken elsewhere. But the longer this uncertainty continues, the harder it becomes for pensioners to plan, to save, and to live with peace of mind. So what can you do? First, stay informed. Keep track of your income and your tax band. Make sure your pension drawdowns are optimized, and seek advice if you're approaching any thresholds. Second, speak up. Write to your MP, join pensioner advocacy groups. Let Parliament know that any new tax burden on pensioners must be fair, transparent, and compassionate. And third, prepare. If you're nearing retirement or already drawing a pension, review your income strategy now. Because the decisions made in the next budget could shape the rest of your financial life. This is about more than numbers. This is about fairness. This is about dignity in retirement. And unless the government changes course soon, millions of pensioners may find themselves paying for the cost of political inaction pound by pound, tax bill by tax bill. Stay tuned, stay informed, and above all, stay prepared. We'll keep bringing you updates on this developing story. Until then, thank you for watching.